Hello, my friends. Just a sort of pre-warning. This is not going to be a happy video. You've probably seen from the title. And so if you're feeling fragile or you just don't want to be upset, you can skip the next one. You know, go watch some Football Manager or something. But obviously, as the title suggests, Midge has passed away. We took him to the vets this afternoon, or yesterday afternoon, and had him put down. In this video, I just wanted to sort of let you guys know, but also I wanted to just talk a little bit about Midge. I know lots of you have seen him on videos. I think it was last year's Journeyman. Early on in the series, he literally came in like a wrecking ball and destroyed my whole set. And he's been on the videos a few times, and I've spoken about him a lot. But I just want to tell you the story, for those who don't know, of Midge, because it's quite a remarkable life that he's had, really. He's been through some shit, right? I had no idea what background to put on this video, so I just left it to the default black. I'll put up some pictures up there of Midge. So, Curly, my girlfriend, works at a recycling plant. She works in the office in finance and stuff. But as you imagine, outside the back of the office, there's a big sort of rubbishy, dumpy place. And there is a group of feral cats there. They are not domesticated in any way. They run away from humans. You can occasionally get them to take some food and stuff. And one of the female cats had a litter of kittens. And that was all well and good. And then what happened was one of the big male cats obviously wanted to breed with the female, but she wasn't in season because she just had kittens. So in the wild, with lions and tigers and stuff like that, especially lions, big new males will kill the kittens or the cubs, and then the female will come into season quicker so he can mate with her. And so he attacked her litter of kittens. I'm not sure how many there was, but he killed all of them but one. And I know this sounds like some weird Hollywood movie or some bullshit, but this is exactly what happened, is that the mum picked up her final kitten in her mouth, like they carry him with the scruff of the neck, and took the kitten to the office building that they lived next to, and literally puts this cat on the doorstep as if to say, help me protect this cat. I cannot look after this cat. So they see humans lots, but it's not like you could go up and stroke one or anything like that. But this cat just seemed to realise something. And obviously Curly was there and found him. And this was the cat that became Midge. So the problem with groups of these feral cats is that... so the way cats work is that a female can have a litter of kittens, but they can be from various different fathers. So she can be impregnated multiple times, and two could be of one dad, one could be of another, and all this sort of stuff. But obviously, when it's a small group of cats, there's a lot of inbredness. They're probably all cousins and uncles and aunties. It's like, you know, I was going to say southern state of America, but that's rude. We'll say Norfolk. And so Curly took in Midge. And she already had one cat, Molly, and Midge was brilliant. And this is before my time, so I wasn't here then. And so raised him normally, perfectly well cat. He always had a bit of an issue with his size. He would eat anything, which is unlike a bit cat normally. I think it's part of that sort of feralness where it's like grab food where you can. So he would always stuff himself. And so we always had slight weight issues and stuff. And then shortly after I moved over, like maybe a year after I moved in, he had his first fit, which turned out to be epilepsy. And this could be just a random issue that could come up, but more likely to be involved with his epilepsy, with his inbredness. So So we got all that fixed, and he had to be on this special drug that he took twice a day that calmed him down. It's phenobarbital, it's called, which would take the fits down to about once every sort of month, maybe. But the fits were terrible. So he'd basically, it spasms and contracts every muscle in your body, and he'd spin around. His claws would come out. He'd stab himself because he had no control, sort of almost unconscious. He'd do that for about 45 seconds, and then he'd sort of just go still, and he'd be sort of heavily breathing. He'd often pee himself, and he had no control over anything. And then after about 30 seconds, he'd come round. Now, the conventional wisdom, they say, with cats, because they're quite, cats quite happy being on their own, is that often the best thing to do when they come round is to sort of give them a dark room on their own, just go sit in and chill and relax. And Midge was as far opposite that as you could ever imagine. He'd come round, realise where he was, and just be absolutely desperate for cuddles and food, because he's Midge. Food is top priority. So like humans just below, but food was his thing, and it'd be amazing. We've also had other issues with him, where there's a thing that's happens quite a lot in cats, which is a crystal build-up in his bladder, and it meant that he couldn't pee. So he had to have an operation to basically clear out his tube, empty his bladder. He's on special medicated food, so as well as the pills, he's on medicated food. But he went under general anaesthetic for this operation. This was a few years ago. And the nurses and vets said to us basically afterwards, he cannot go under general anaesthetic again, because it's always a risk. Any general anaesthetic is a risk, but because of the inbred nature, because of his epilepsy, other stuff like that, it's dangerous. So it's okay. So we deal with that. So epilepsy's done. Okay, we control his epilepsy. That's all good. He once fell out of my bedroom window because he's the clumsiest cat in the world. He's the uncatty-like cat in the world. So we're on the first floor where I'm sitting, and my window's right next to me. The window was open. He jumped out, went onto the windowsill outside, having a look round, and decided he wanted to come back in, and started reversing back in, and then his bum hit the outside. I was sitting here like I was just coming. I didn't even know the window was open. He snuck in behind me and jumped up and was out on the windowsill, and I'm like sitting here like I can't do anything because I don't want to spook him. And he nudged the window with his bum as he was trying to reverse back in, and that made him slip, and he just disappeared down, right? Below us is full concrete, right? And a big step, okay? Big concrete step. And I sat here for what felt like forever. It was probably like a microsecond before I ran downstairs. He ran outside, and he's just here. He's like, wevs. And actually, like, a cat falling, they always say, oh, the cats land on their feet. First floor is the most dangerous height for a cat, right? Small heights, fine. Even larger heights, they can survive because they've got time to twist. A first floor is really dangerous, but he just seemed to be weirdly completely fine. So we've dealt with all that shit, and he quickly became my hero because despite all the health problems he'd had, he would just got on with it. Just was still the same cat, would just get on with it, didn't care, just whatever. Okay, I've had a fit, I've pissed myself, I've clawed my own face, but would just get on with it. Still a really lovable, friendly cat, and got on well with the dogs and all sorts of stuff. He was just an absolute hero. And then this is where it gets odd. About 2.5 months ago, we noticed just a slight thing when we were giving him, before we give him his dinner, he gets his phenobarbital pill, and you have to. But the easiest way to give medication to cats is just put your finger just in that bit of the mouth, and they'll open their mouth, and then you just sort of chuck it in. And normally he just deals with it because he gets food after. And he just started being a little bit tetchy with it. He'd just do that. Fuck off. And so we sort of noticed that, and then it seemed like he had some sort of pain just on this right-hand side of his face. So we're like, okay, could be, he's 12 years old, so it could be something to do with his teeth. It's a very common problem in older cats tooth decay, something like that. So we took him to the vet, and the vet noticed that one of his teeth had basically gone rotten, which is a common enough problem. And that it was like wobbling. It was in, but it was a little bit infected, and it was probably causing him a bit of jip. And so we got some antibiotics for him and stuff like this, and to give him like a 2-week course. And then I think it was I'm not sure the timeline, about a week afterwards, one morning I went downstairs and his jaw, bottom jaw, was, so that's the middle. His bottom jaw, the middle of his bottom jaw was over here. His whole bottom jaw had rotated about 30 degrees, right? Like nutty. It looked crazy. So we don't know what exactly happened. So, of course, we went to the vet. And there's only so much they can look at with a cat that's in pain, because he'll, obviously, cats don't really like having their mouths looked into and stuff. And we couldn't do a proper x-ray because he's not allowed to go under general anaesthetic. He's too high risk. We couldn't even do a local x-ray because it would have been really tough to do and hold him down and open his jaw to get the x-ray and all this sort of stuff. So the vet sort of did what they could. And one of the sort of things we said was that he's still eating. He has trouble now because none of his teeth meet up perfectly fine. And one of his bottom fangs was sort of in the middle, right? So we started spoon feeding him. You just sort of feed him in from the side. And he seemed, for what had just happened to him, basically his jaw had collapsed in at this end, collapsed entirely, which sort of shifted it around, whether it had just fractured and slipped or whether there was maybe bone cancer or something along those lines. The vet sort of didn't know without a proper sort of full look at him, which we couldn't really do. So we made the call to sort of, he was, like I said, he was feeding okay, he seemed to be sleeping okay. His sort of tongue would now hang out because it was obviously all misaligned and stuff like this. And I brought up to Curly quite early on because I've been through this a few times with pets, and I'm a big believer in making sure you have open and honest conversations. And the conversation should always be with a pet about quality of life. And this was while he was doing okay. I brought it up and we had a discussion about how he was doing, and we were sort of saying, well, he's eating okay, we can feed him and stuff like that. He seems to be able to sleep okay. He seems to still moving about, not quite as much, but, he's an older cat as well. And we were like, okay, we'll just play it by ear. And then in the last 4 days, we noticed that when we were spoon feeding him, he was having a harder time with it. He was dribbling. It would annoy him. Something would annoy him, whether it was a bit of food that gets trapped in, or sensitive, or it's getting worse, or something. Before you could shovel it in him. He loves his food, and so we sort of kept an eye on it and noticed it. And then yesterday, or day before yesterday, so Thursday, I'm recording this like middle of the night, Friday, so I'm a bit confused. So on Thursday, I spoke to Curly. I said, let's have a discussion about quality of life, because I was on the edge of, I don't think he's got much of one. So, and it's always a horrible decision. It's, I know not everyone is a massive dog or cat or pet lover or animal lover in general, but to those of us that are, they are just as important as any other family member. They mean that much. And having a discussion about basically whether to have one of your family members killed is, as you'd expect, quite tricky. But because he was now struggling to even eat properly, and I'd seen him a couple of times, he wasn't sleeping well. He's always sort of just stressed and tight, and he just looked fucking miserable. Cats are very good and goes for wild cats as well as domesticated cats, at not hiding pain. They don't whinge about it very much unless it's extreme. But watching him sort of just sitting there looking out, the best way I can describe it is he'd stop being able to be a cat. You know, Midge. What does Midge love? Eating. Can't do that anymore. Sleeping seemed to struggle. He wasn't going out very much at all. He couldn't clean himself properly because his tongue was at a different angle. He was struggling to drink. So me and Kelly decided that we were going to book him into the vet Friday tea time with go in and with the idea that depending on obviously what the vet said, there might have been something obvious. Maybe another tooth was going. Maybe we could help him that way, and he'd be okay for a while. But unless the vet had something like that to say, that we'd have him put down. And so that was literally Thursday night, and it was booked in for Friday tea time. And then Friday tea time, this is earlier today, I got up around lunchtime. Curly's at work. I got up around lunchtime, went to let the dogs out, and there was quite a large pool of blood on the floor that on one of the blankets on the floor next to where the cats sometimes sleep. So I was like, okay, this is bad. Let the dogs out. Shut them outside. Went and found Midge, and he was on the bed as he normally is, his favourite place to sleep. But he'd obviously been bleeding a lot, so something else had gone wrong. So I was like, okay, but he seemed okay, and I knew that it was only a few hours until we were going to take him to the vets. And then, literally, weirdly, as soon as Curly got home and we were talking about going, he just started bleeding again. Quite a lot of blood for a small cat. So it was weird because there's always a doubt when you're making that decision if you're making the right one, right? There's always a doubt, even if it's quite clear, even if the vet's like, yeah, there's always something in your mind saying, yeah, but maybe he'd be fine if we just. But with that happening today, and I know it wasn't the case, but it felt like he was just letting us know that he was ready to go. He said, in the last couple of weeks, of an evening, I've gone down to get a cup of tea, and Midge has been there or whatever, and I've always said to him, let me know when it's time. Let me know when it's time, mate. And that sort of felt like it. It was. So we went to the vets with obviously not the idea of a checkup, but just letting the vet know that it's time. And so the vet was amazing. The vet was brilliant. So we stayed with him when he got injected and stuff, and he went straight off. It was really good from that point of view. The vets were amazing. Weirdly, so speaking, Thursday night, I was always worried that after this collapse of this jaw, then. Luckily, we hadn't had an epileptic fit since this had happened. We don't know what caused it. It could have caused it. It could have been he could have hit himself. It could have been weakened, and he could have had a fit, and it caused it. But since he'd had it happened, he'd not had a fit, and I was always petrified. If he had another fit, he could really just destroy this whole jaw or whatever, do a lot more damage. And weirdly, on Thursday night, Curly had gone to bed, and he was on the bed with Curly. And she called me in there at about 1 a.m. and just said, come in. And he'd had a fit, but he was on the bed, and he was lying next to my pillow, and it was almost like a smaller fit. He hadn't peed himself, and luckily, normally he's on the wooden floor or the slate floor or on something hard that he can hurt himself. Luckily, he had a fit and stayed on the bed. And after the sort of 30 seconds of him sort of coming around, just realising where he is again, we got to see for about 2 minutes the old Midge. Like, because I don't know what it is, he's so wired about this fit that we saw for like a 2-3 minute spell the old Midge. He was desperate for cuddles. He was walking around headbutting things and meowing and loving cuddles and wanted some food. And it was so nice to have that little moment, because for the last 2 months he's just been having a shit time. He's just been grumpy. He's just been in pain, and it was just nice to see, and it also reminded us how much he changed. Because when you see a cat every hour of every day, you might not notice a decline so much because you see it. It's such a slight change every day. But when you saw him alive and walking around, you sort of saw how much difference there was. So although it was a fit, weirdly, that he had last night, it was we got to see Midge again, and it was nice and say goodbye. And it's a horrible thing, obviously, to go through. It's the worst part of owning a pet, of any type, when you're that close to it. But I think he's just been through so much, and he just battled it, and he'd fought everything. He'd even sort of got on with it despite his jaw being at such an extreme angle. It looked ridiculous. It looked so painful, but you could stroke him at that bit and he'd just be fine. He'd be purr, and that's why I've said in multiple videos when I've talked about Midge that he's my hero, because if you can have that shit throughout your entire life, all that shit, that crap hand that's been dealt to you, and just get on with it regardless, I think that's fucking heroic. Yeah, so yeah, Midge is just a legend, and I'm still. That's why it's sort of put back everything a bit on YouTube, you know, with the pet channel and stuff like this, is with all that's going on. I didn't want to burden you guys every week giving you a Midge sort of health update, but you know, he's on the. There's my link to my pet channel is below, and he's on the artwork for the pet channel, and he will always be on the artwork for the pet channel. He will be a big part of that, regardless. Because he's a big reason I wanted to do it. So it's really shitty. But so obviously, me and Curly are booked to go to Amsterdam on Saturday, this Saturday coming, and we're definitely still going. I think it'll be actually really good. I think quite quickly, because of the shit Midge has gone through, I think we'll quite quickly get to the stage where we can sort of celebrate his life and stuff, as opposed to just sort of feel sorry for him, because he had been through so much. So I'm actually thinking it will be a really good trip away, just to get away from it all, and the house and the reminders and stuff like that. So we're still going to Amsterdam. Luckily, I've been recording extra videos each day on the lead up to the Amsterdam trip, because I'm having a week off after that as well. But I was recording videos for this coming week anyway, to get ahead of myself, so I had time to organise and pack for the trip. I don't even know what I'm fucking saying, to be honest. Which it turns out to be good, because obviously the last thing I want to be doing is recording a Football Manager video right now. But so you'll see some episodes. I'll bring it up for myself. So I've got like 3 episodes of the Altrincham Save. And an episode of The Journeyman, an episode of Jurassic World, and 4 episodes of 2 Point Hospital, all recorded. I still had a few more journeymans to go before I had enough for the rest of the next week. But I'm just going to not. I just don't want to. But I wanted to make this video. I think you guys know me well enough that I'm not trying to pander or want pity or any shit like that. But Midge has been on lots of videos. So I know that you guys liked him as well, so fucking hell. But you know, I know that I talked about him a lot, and you're my mates, so I wanted to tell you. Yeah, I'm going to stop now, because this is getting silly. It's for those who haven't gone through it, it's a really weird situation, because since it's been like 8 hours since he was put to sleep, and it's been probably 24 hours since I've kind of known that it was time. And it goes in waves, man. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm feeling all right. I feel almost relief because I'm not. I feel a selfish relief because I'm not worried about Midge, but also I feel relief for Midge because he doesn't have to suffer anymore. And whether you believe in the afterlife or reincarnation or, you know, when that's it, that's fine. It doesn't really matter. But he doesn't have to suffer anymore. And so sometimes, you know, me and Curly tonight, sometimes we could, for moments, you just have a laugh, and it would be okay, and we'd look at pictures, and it would be okay. And then other moments, you just want to burst into tears. There's no like level bit. It's so weird. Like, you'd just be like, I'm making a cup of tea, and now I'm crying. There was not even any Midge-related things next to me, and now I'm crying. And then other times you're okay and going, I'm glad he's sort of, you know, safe now, and nothing's bothering him anymore. It's weird. So, not entirely sure I'm going to upload this video, to be honest. I thought I was in a good moment to talk about him, so I did it. So, apologies for waffling on and crying lots. Not my usual fun ramble. Oh, Liverpool Tottenham tomorrow. Couldn't give less of a shit. But like I said, I'm looking forward to Amsterdam. I think it'll be good for me and it'll be good for Curly. Yeah, so Midge was a legend. Yeah, Midge was a legend. And he meant a lot to me. And I know a lot of you guys liked him, so that's why I'm making this. I'm sorry if it went on. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.